The low fuel message. Okay, I'm just a driver just like you, but over 4 years I've found some ways to make sure I don't run out of fuel. So in 4.5 years I've never run out of fuel. I've come close a couple times. As you know, we rely on fuel solutions, and one way to guarantee that we have enough fuel to get to those solutions is there's some tips. Okay, first and foremost, I was told by a driver that had 7 or 8 years experience that when your fuel light comes on the first time, you have about 80 miles. That's a safe bet, maybe more. You probably have more, but 80 miles after your light first comes on, you have about 80 miles you can get somewhere. When I report how much fuel I have when I accept a load, I always report that I have an eighth less than I actually do. So for instance, if I have a full tanks, I report that I have 7/8. If I have a half tank, I report I have 3/8. That way, when you get your fuel solution, you're not running on fumes, puttering into the pilot or wherever you're on fumes. You have some fuel left. That also helps you if you're driving through the mountains, because it takes more fuel to go up and down through the mountains. So I always report that I have an eighth less than I actually do. When you get down low, when your fuel light comes on and you get down to that last eighth of fuel, the needle will bounce. It will, you look at it, it says you got an eighth of a tank, and then you look at it again and it's on E. It bounces a little bit, so it'll go to eighth of a tank and then it'll dive bomb to E. It doesn't mean you're empty. I'm not exactly sure why the gauge does that, but then it'll bounce back up to an eighth, and then so it kind of bounces around. That's why when you first see that low fuel light, you got about 80 miles, so you don't have to freak out. But I know I freak out when I see it. The thought of running out of fuel is not pleasant. So I try to make sure I don't ever get that low. You are able to, let's say you have a fuel solution and you're driving, and maybe you went through the mountains, or maybe you've been running the engine to stay warm or cool or whatever, and you have less fuel than you think you need to make it to your fuel stop. In workflow, you can update your fuel. So you go into workflow, update fuel level, and in this case I usually lowball it a little bit so that I can get a fuel solution, so that you will get updated fuel solutions, which are what we need. If you are low on fuel and for whatever reason you have to stop short of your fuel solution and you have to spend the night, let's say you're pretty low on fuel, if you run the automated comfort, which makes the engine start up when it needs it, or the engine will start up if you're running low on battery, it will run you completely dry. It won't shut the engine off if you are running low on fuel. So if you put the comfort switch on and you go to sleep and the truck starts running in the middle of the night and your fuel is going low, it will run dry. So if you're really low on fuel and you have to stop for the night, you might have to bite the bullet and just not let the engine run. Turn that auto comfort thing off and just either bundle up or whatever you have to do, but it will run empty. When it comes to DEF, I very rarely let the DEF get below halfway. I will get DEF even if I don't really need it, just because I don't know. Not all stations have DEF, and to me it's just easier just to get it. It's not that big of a deal just to fill up on DEF every time I get fuel. So I've never run low on DEF. I have been to a few places that don't have DEF, or else the DEF is not operating. So when I'm able to get it, I just fill it up, the DEF. Okay. When I said that I nearly ran out of fuel, here's what happened. So I got a fuel solution. It was at a pilot, and I was running low on fuel, but I thought that I had enough fuel to get there. I get there, and then my needle's on empty, and I get there and the fuel pumps are shut down. No fuel available. So now I'm like in a real pickle. I'm like, oh boy, because like the next closest Pilot or Flying J or anything was like 60 or 70 miles away, and I was not going to make that. So I called in. I explained what happened. They said, well, why didn't you get fuel? And I said, well, I'm trying to get fuel. The pumps are down. And you can fill up at just about any truck stop, any fuel station. But to do that, you have to get, everywhere will take your fuel card. So what you have to do is you have to call in, and they contact the truck stop, and they I don't know, they pay for it, you get a check, you give them a check or something. I'm not exactly sure how it works. I never had to do that, but you should never run out of fuel. If you think you're going to run out, stop, make phone calls. You should never run out of fuel. I haven't. Like I said, I've come close, but you know, where there's a will, there's a way. There's always a way to get fuel and not run out of fuel. So anyway, just helpful tips. Like I said, I'm not an expert. I'm just a driver, and I've learned a lot of this stuff from veteran drivers. So if you have any tips on fuel, please leave them in the comments and educate myself and educate whoever might learn something. That would be helpful. Thank you.